صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. برای شادی روح مرحوم آیت الله حسن عاملی, which he was a great treasure for Islam and for Shiayan, and great philosopher and great overall alim, which today or tomorrow, yesterday was his wafat, and please read the Surah Fatah. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنما يستجيب الذين يسمعون. إنما يستجيب الذين يسمعون والموتى يبعثهم الله ثم إليه يرجعون. وقالوا لولا ننزل عليه آيات من ربه قل إن الله قادر على أن ينزل آية ولكن أكثرهم لا يعلمون. وما من دابة في الأرض ولا طير يطير بجناحه إلا أمثالكم ما فرطنا في الكتاب من شيء ثم إلى ربهم يحشرون. ولقد أرسلنا إلى أمم من قبلك فأخذتهم بالبأس والضراء لعلهم يتضرعون. فلولا إذ جاءهم بأسا تضرعوا ولكن قست قلوبهم وزين لهم الشيطان فما كانوا يعملون صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام. Tonight we are with one riwayat, Shab Arba'in. If not tonight, definitely tomorrow night, Shab Arba'in. I was watching some of the processions toward the Karbala, and today was live. They were showing the walkers toward the Arba'in, toward the Karbala, and the shocking part of it is that you see people from all ages, from all countries, from all everywhere. They're going to say labbaik to their Maulana, and Karbala truly has a feel of Ma'ad and Qiyamah. Everybody is going toward their Mawla, and everybody, as you have been to Ziyarat, most of you know that everybody is trying to reach the Qubbah, at least touch the Qubbah, if nothing else. That's their goal was to reach the Haram Abu Abdullah and Hazrat Abbas and all the Ashab Imam Hussein. But amazingly, last night I have a habit of telling you what ayat, at least which surah I'm reading from. And my hope is that someone go back and actually research those ayat and get some guidance from it. Tonight, I read this ayat from Surah An'am, Surah number 6 in Quran. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala briefly says that in this ayat that I have created you and I have given you the Anbiya, the Rasul, and I have given you the Kitab. And I am the one who have created you and created the Rasulullah and all these Masumin and Aimeh and Piyambaran to guide you. And I am the one actually that answers your questions. And when the Kafirin ask for a mu'jiza, for some miracle, it says, what miracle more than this Kitab and this Rasul? I'm the one who give you the permission to seek guidance. And those people who deny it, shayateen is overtaking their hearts. And in the Yawm al-Qiyamah, they will be sorry and they will ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness, but it's too late. So we have the guidance from the Quran. It says, Ila sirat al-mustaqim. And we said, Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim in our prayer. So we have to seek that sirat al-mustaqim. It just is, if you go to a grocery store and say, I want a cup of milk, I want a cup of water, they say, okay, this is the price of it. The price of it is accepting of Allah as the creator and follow his guidance, and guidance comes through the Rasulullah and Ahlul Bayt, and inshallah they will be the shafaat for us in the Yawm al-Qiyamah. So inshallah tonight we want to listen to the Shaykh and actually seek some guidance and keep our eyes open, our ears open. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inshallah will reward you for coming to Majlis Abu Abdullah, and we are truly honored we got the invitations. Those of us who are here truly are blessed to be the azadar for who? For the Farzand Az-Zahra alayhim as-salam. And this center belongs to Fatima Az-Zahra. And inshallah, the walls of this masjid, the walls of this center will testify in the Yawm al-Qiyamah that you broke your heart and you came here and attended the Majlis for Abu Abdullah. The rest of us, we are Khadim al Fatima Az-Zahra. I just want to finish my little talk. I saw a picture yesterday that it truly affected me. It showed four professors, an Italian, a French, and a couple of other professors that they not only they believed and became converted to Shia Islam, they came to be Khadim Abu Abdullah, but through Astana Quds Razavi, they had the libas Khadim of Imam Reza. Look at that blessing. One day you're in ignorance, in total ignorance, and away from Islam. Next day you convert to Islam and you're invited to be the Khadim Imam Reza. And in Mokab Imam Reza, you're giving water and tea to walkers of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. So I can't forget our brothers and sisters who are on the way to Karbala and make the effort to go ziyarat. I ask them to make pray for all of us, inshallah. And with that blessing, salawat Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, we start the meeting. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Salawat. Surah Fatiha for all the Mu'mineen and Mu'minat, please. Assalamu alaikum. یہ سوچتا ہوں کہ عابد کا حال کیا ہوگا، یہ سوچتا ہوں کہ عابد کا حال کیا ہوگا، اسیر ہو کہ وہ جب شام میں گیا ہوگا، یہ سوچتا ہوں کہ عابد کا حال کیا ہوگا، اسیر ہو کہ وہ جب شام میں گیا ہوگا، سنا ہے شام میں جاتے ہی خون رونے لگا، سنا ہے شام میں جاتے ہی خون رونے لگا، نہ جانے شمر نے اس وقت کیا کہا ہوگا، نہ جانے شمر نے اس وقت کیا کہا ہوگا، یہ سوچتا ہوں کہ عابد کا حال کیا ہوگا، گلے کے طوق نے عابد کو کیا جھکانا تھا، گلے کے طوق نے عابد کو کیا جھکانا تھا، وہ اپنے کھوئے ہوئے لال ڈھونڈتا ہوگا، وہ اپنے کھوئے ہوئے لال ڈھونڈتا ہوگا. یہ سوچتا ہوں کہ عابد کا حال کیا ہوگا. وہ یاد کرتا تو ہوگا وطن کی شاہی کو. وہ یاد کرتا تو ہوگا وطن کی شاہی کو. بہن کو دفن جو پردیس میں کیا ہوگا. بہن کو دفن جو پردیس میں کیا ہوگا. یہ سوچتا ہوں کہ عابد کا حال کیا ہوگا. وہ ظلم دیکھے سجاد نے حسین کے بعد. وہ ظلم دیکھے ہیں سجاد نے حسین کے بعد. مجھے یقین ہے کہ اب تک وہ رو رہا ہوگا. مجھے یقین ہے کہ اب تک وہ رو رہا ہوگا. یہ سوچتا ہوں کہ عابد کا حال کیا ہوگا. جو دیکھیں غور سے عابد بشر نہیں لگتا. جو دیکھیں غور سے عابد بشر نہیں لگتا. میرے خیال میں دکھ درد کا خدا ہوگا. میرے خیال میں دکھ درد کا خدا ہوگا. یہ سوچتا ہوں کہ عابد کا حال کیا ہوگا. اسیر ہو کے وہ جب شام میں گیا ہوگا. صلوات.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Brothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I begin in the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. All praise belongs to Him, the one who creates, but is not created, the one who sees, but is unseen, the one who gives and takes life, but is ever living, and the one who gave us the best example for us to follow, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam. Peace and blessings be upon him and his family. Allah says in His holy book, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu in ja'akum fasikum binaba'in fatabayyanu an tusibu qawman bijahalati fatusbihu ala ma fa'altum nadimin. Sadaqallahu al-aliyyul azim. The verse of the Quran that I just recited is from Surah Hujurat. And the translation of this verse is, O you who believe, if there comes to you an openly sinful person with information, investigate. Otherwise, you may wind up harming people out of ignorance and become over what you have done regretful. The background of this particular verse, according to some of our mufassirin, is that there was a man by the name of Walid bin Uqba. And Allah is calling this person a fasiq. And when Allah is calling somebody a fasiq, by that definition, is somebody who openly commits a sin. And so this Walid wanted to attack the tribe of Bani Mustaliq. He had some sort of personal vendetta, some grievances against a particular tribe. And so he wanted to convince, under false pretenses, the Prophet and the army of the Muslims to go and attack this particular tribe. So what it seems like he was trying to do was create a false flag operation. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that term. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning people against it. So in this case, He's warning the Prophet and the Muslims about this individual who wants to do certain things. But of course, when we look at the Quran, it's a lesson for us for all times. And there's certain lessons we can derive just from this simple particular verse. There's lessons of critical thinking. There's lessons of blind following. And there's lessons of conspiracy theories. Now, many of you have heard growing up the story of the boy who cried wolf, but maybe some of you haven't. So the story goes, there was a young boy who was entrusted with keeping a village safe. So the village people asked him to keep an eye out for whenever there was a wolf and to let them know whenever there was a wolf that would come to the city. And the reason for this was if a wolf came, it would attack the live animals and possibly hurt the people. And so this boy was given this responsibility. So one day the boy was feeling bored. He thought, I'm going to have some fun with the village. So he decided to make a false claim. He went into the village, he shouted, wolf, wolf. And then people came from the village and they were looking around. They were like, where's the wolf? And all they saw was the boy laughing at them. And so the village people got annoyed and they went back to their homes. The next day, the boy still wanted to have some more fun. And so he repeated the same thing. He shouted, wolf, wolf. And so the village people came again. And they were looking for the wolf. Like, where's the wolf? Where's the wolf? They were asking. And the boy was seen just laughing. And the village people had had enough. They said, okay, if he does this again, we're not responding to him. So after some days, this young boy decided not to make that kind of joke. But one day, as the boy was keeping an eye out, what did he see? But he actually saw a wolf. And he got nervous. And so he started shouting, wolf, wolf, to the village. But this time, the villagers were like, we're not going to fall for it this time. And he got more agitated and nervous. So he kept saying, wolf, wolf, I'm not lying this time. I'm not joking. But they didn't believe him. And so what happened? The wolf came and took and killed the animals. So in this simple story that many of you heard as kids, we have to be very discerning when it comes to what we hear from individuals. And if you're the person giving news, it's important to have a level of credibility. We're living in a time and age where credibility of news sources is becoming a problem. Not that this has not been a problem in the past, but now it's a little bit more open. And it's about issues that concern not only religion, politics, but also concerns public health. One of the things that's important to do is analyze the source of where you're getting your information from. And the Quran addresses this issue. when you see the prophets of God addressing individuals who used to worship multiple gods, the prophets would ask them, why are you worshiping these different gods? What was their answer? We saw our fathers doing it. Similarly, in today's times, when you look at a position people take, be it on an issue like vaccines or masks or any other important issue, rather than doing some sort of substantial research, people will often take the position of the people around them, the community they belong to. And this is not a guarantee that your position will be right. So this is also a lesson to us, that we always need to be critical thinkers. So this verse of the Quran is teaching us several things to reflect on. Critical thinking is one of them. The danger of taking values simply because people around you have them is manifold. There's many dangers in that. There's potential public health dangers. Imagine if numbers was a criteria for which we decided to take information for. So in other words, you look at society and you decide, my values are based on what people around me say. My people in my country believe, for example, slavery is okay, God forbid. So I therefore believe slavery is okay. People believe killing an innocent person is okay because in my society it's okay, therefore I believe it's okay. Just to highlight an example of how numbers can be misleading. Take a look, let's say for example, a prison was allowed to vote and say, okay guys, we're going to let you vote on whatever morals and ethics you want because you're the numbers. So the prisoners all decide, because all of them were criminals, that we decide the crimes we committed are okay. Does this all of a sudden make it okay because the majority of a community and society said it's okay? And the answer is no. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. One of the lessons we learn is that we should never look at personalities alone. A few nights ago, I talked about the example of Imam Ali when he had to face off against people who were close to the Prophet during his life in the Battle of Jamal. And I gave the example of a man who approached Imam Ali alayhi salam asking, whose side should I go on? But Imam Ali corrected his frame of reference. Imam Ali said, look for the truth rather than look at individuals. And so this is a very important lesson for us to learn, because when we look at individuals, as opposed to looking at principles, we fall into the trap. One of the traps is tribalism, for example. You fall into the trap of politics. We fall into this trap known as identity politics, where we take a position only because the community around us takes that position. And henceforth, you see the problems that exist with vaccines. And again, I'm not here to debate the issue of vaccines or masks. What I'm asking people to do instead is to think critically. Why do you take the position that you take? The Quran says, Hatu burhanakum in kuntum sadiqin. Bring your proofs if you're truthful. Now, what is the Quran alluding to? People are going to have different perspectives, different views, and you'll engage in discussions and debates with people with different kinds of views. The important thing is to make sure that whatever your basis is it's solid. And so a couple of points to look at. For those of you who are in academia, you know that in order to be taken serious, those of you who are in grad school or taking higher level ed courses, you know that if you want to publish something, for example, it needs to go through a peer review process. So if I want to publish something in an academic journal, it's often peer reviewed. And one of the advantages behind that is it helps maintain the credibility of that science, which is not to say everybody will agree, but there's certain agreed principles in that field which help keeps that field significant and true. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. One of the dangers of conspiracy theories. Now, by definition, a conspiracy theory is something that's not founded. Like, people may believe something, but they have no evidence to back up what they're saying. I want to share with you some examples of conspiracy theories that exist now and have existed in the past, to show you how dangerous they can be when we don't have solid evidence for whatever it is we believe or profess. If you ask, for example, people in the society who are on the far right, they will tell you, for example, that Barack Obama was a Muslim. Now, this might sound laughable to all of us in this room, but this is a belief, this is an example of a conspiracy theory belief that exists in the far right. Another belief that, for example, pervades in the far right is that the Muslims in the society want to somehow take over and implement Sharia law in Western countries. Again, this is another example which has no basis. It's based on fear. It's based on being around a certain community that's perpetuating these ideas. But the Muslims are not immune from conspiracy theories either, brothers and sisters. Unfortunately, we also have a shameful history of propagating ideas that are not in line with Islamic principles and not substantiated. I'll give you a very shameful example. A few years ago, when the tragedy of 9/11 happened, one of the conspiracy theories that was going on, that was prominent in the Muslim community, unfortunately, was that, and some of you may have heard this, that the day before, there were people of the Jewish faith who called out, knowing that this thing was going to happen. Now, this is obviously very anti-Semitic and something not based on truth. But there's people who are believing these things. And unfortunately, there were agencies in other countries, so-called Muslim countries, that were promoting this kind of belief. And so we have to be on guard. See, Islam is not a religion of tribalism. We don't take sides with Muslims just because we're Muslims. We don't take sides with anybody simply because they're family. Our guiding principle is the truth. And then, as Imam Ali said, once you know the truth, you follow those who are upon the truth. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. One of the things in the Quran, in this Quranic ayat, draws attention to this, is that a certain impulsiveness is dangerous. When you act impulsively without evidence, because you're somehow deceived by appearances, and you don't have substantial evidence, you wind up getting into danger. What happened, for example, after the Battle of Jamal? Imam Ali's difficulties were not over. Imam Ali then had to deal with the Battle of Siffin. And what happened in the Battle of Siffin? Imam Ali alayhi salam, thanks to one of his brave generals, Malik al-Ashtar, they were getting the upper hand against Muawiyah and Amr bin al-As. And Muawiyah and Amr bin al-As were quite worried, like, wow, Ali and his forces are getting up your hand. What are we going to do? Then they thought of a clever trick. They knew that there are people in Imam Ali's army that were a bit gullible. And so what they did was they took the Quran and they put it on spears. They said, we'll tell them the Quran will arbitrate for us. So when they did this, when certain people from Imam Ali's army saw this, they were like, oh, it's a Quran. You can't fight the Quran. And Imam Ali alayhi salam is telling them, those are pieces of paper. These people are tricking you. I'm a Quran and Natiq. I'm the spoken Quran. These guys are deceiving you. This is a deception. These are nothing but pieces of paper, and they're trying to deceive you. Unfortunately, these individuals would not listen, and they forced Imam Ali salam to arbitrate with Muawiyah, and unfortunately, even that was broken. Later on, these individuals realized that they had made a mistake, but rather than confess to that mistake, they blamed Imam Ali alayhi salam. Imam Ali said, you're the one who refused and who got deceived. And they went to the effect of calling Imam Ali astaghfirullah kafir. And they fought Imam Ali alayhi salam in Nahrawan. Imam Ali overcame them, but unfortunately one of these individuals, Ibn Muljam la'natul alayh, was the one who killed Imam Ali on one of the nights of Ramadan. And so it behooves us to be cognizant and not fall into the trap of being impulsive when somebody comes bearing news, to do our due diligence. So this verse of the Quran is instructing us on so many levels. A, engage in critical thinking. B, don't be impulsive when somebody comes. Rather, think about it, say, okay, what's this being presented, and do your due diligence. And C, don't look at something simply because people in your family or community take a particular view. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So, and throughout time, we've had people who've made false claims on different things. In the 1800s, you had an individual in Sudan who claimed he was the Mahdi. You had in the Indian subcontinent around that time, you had somebody who claimed was a Mahdi as well, somebody by the name of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. And throughout history, there have been people who made different claims. Well, this is more of a recent humorous example. There's a TV network many of you may be familiar with called Peace Network. And I'm not advocating that work. I'm not personally a fan of this network. But on one of their networks, they had an open Q&A where people could have a discussion. They could ask the panelists certain questions. So one person went up to the microphone and said, "Assalamu alaikum." And the panelist said, "Wa alaikum assalam." He said, "Sir, I have some news to share with you." And the panelists looked a little baffled, but they seemed, okay, what does this guy have to share with us? And he said, "I have news that Jesus Christ is coming because I'm the Mahdi." When the panelists heard this, they couldn't stop laughing. They, understandably so. And so then one of the panelists said to him, he said, "You're the Mahdi?" He said, "Yes, I'm here to bring the news of Jesus Christ's arrival." And he said, "The Mahdi is going to know Arabic." This was done in India. And this man was somebody they could sense did not know Arabic. They said, Imam Mahdi is going to know Arabic. So this man started reciting Surah Fatiha, and then he started laughing. He said, this is not enough. And then the panelist went on to continue, and he said, I dealt with something like this before, where in the US, I had a call-in session. And there was a person who was a convert. And they called in claiming to be Imam Mahdi also. And I asked him the same question. I said, "Do you know Arabic?" Imam Mahdi is going to speak Arabic. He said, "No." And so sometimes with simple reasoning, you can discuss different things with people who have different views, or you can use simple proofs to show that there's not a validity in, say, a conspiracy theory or a ridiculous claim somebody might make. During the time of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, I shared this earlier, where he would engage in different discussions and debates with atheists. And they felt comfortable enough to come up to him. Some of them were respectful, so much so that one of the companions, one of the persons who an atheist used to frequent Imam Sadiq's talks, was annoyed at one of the companions of Imam Sadiq, because one of the companions of Imam Sadiq used very harsh language against the atheist. And the atheist responded, "If you were truly a follower of Imam Sadiq, you wouldn't talk like that to me." See, here's the atheist reminding this supposed follower of Imam Sadiq, if you're really a follower of Imam Sadiq, this is not the character you exhibit, nor the traits. So one of these atheists, not the same atheist, another atheist, one day decided he was going to do something a little silly. He thought this concept of God was silly. And so to prove it, he said, "I can create things too." So he took some dirt, and bugs came out. And he claimed, "See, I'm the creator of these bugs." So Imam Sadiq, I'm asking him a very simple question. He said, "Can you tell me which of these bugs are male and female?" And the atheist was stumped. He was like, "No, I can't." And then Imam Sadiq said, "What kind of creator are you that you can't tell that which ones are male and which ones are female?" Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now, in conclusion, before I get to the Maqtal Masab, I just want us to be on guard whenever we hear information, to not rush to judgment, to think critically about what's being said. Allah gave us aql. He gave us aql so that we could discern things. It's one of the best gifts that Allah has given us. You all have all heard the story about aql, where Nabi Adam alayhi salam, the story goes, Nabi Adam was given a choice between aql, the ability to reason, modesty, and religion. And so Allah asked Adam, "Which of these do you want?" The story goes. And Adam alayhi chose, "I pick aql." And so Allah commanded aql to step forward. When aql stepped forward, modesty and piety also stepped forward. So when it was asked of them, "Why did you two step forward?" they say, "Wherever aql goes, we go." So always use your aql to the best of your abilities. And let us stay away from being impulsive. Let's be on guard against conspiracy theories. And let us, whenever we're in doubt about a particular matter, always consult people who are knowledgeable in that particular field, whether it be in the issue of vaccines, whether it be in the issue of religion, or any other area that we seek to learn about. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now, as we are here gathered for the nights to remember the sacrifice of Imam Hussein and his family, there were other individuals who stood up to the cause of Imam Hussein. So after the tragedy of Karbala, Imam Zain al-Abidin, Sayyidah Zainab, they were forcefully brought to Kufa. And then Imam Zain al-Abidin and Sayyidah Zainab gave very passionate and powerful talks, condemning the people of Kufa for their treachery and for their cowardice. And they maintained their dignity. Despite what happened to them, Imam Sajjad and Sayyidah Zainab maintained their dignity. And then they were brought in front of Ibn Ziyad. And Ibn Ziyad did his best to humiliate them. But you cannot humiliate the members of Ahlul Bayt. He did whatever he could to threaten them, but they maintained their composure. One of the companions of Imam Ali, who was an older blind gentleman who had saw and heard what was going on, by the name of Abdullah bin Afif, heard this commotion. And he addressed Ibn Ziyad. He said, "You're a liar, the son of a liar." And Ibn Ziyad became angry and said, "Who dares speak to me like this?" He said, "O enemy of Allah, I am addressing you. Are you killing the pious progeny of the Holy Prophet and then think you're following the religion of Islam?" And then Abdullah calls to his tribe and says, "We need to take revenge against what happened to the family of the Prophet." Ibn Ziyad was getting angrier and angrier. He said, "Bring this man to me." As the guards of Ibn Ziyad approached Abdullah, the blind elderly gentleman, who fought valiantly under Imam Ali's army and had become blind as a result of that, he made his tribal call. And his tribe came and protected him from Ibn Ziyad's army, and they brought him back to his home. But Ibn Ziyad wasn't done. Ibn Ziyad sent his soldiers towards that person's house. Now the tribe members of this Abdullah tried their best to protect him. But Ibn Ziyad had another tribal alliance, and he sent that tribe to fight the tribe of Abdullah. Fighting ensued, and many members of that tribe died. And finally, the soldiers of Ibn Ziyad made their way. They broke into the house of this brave, blind, elderly gentleman, Abdullah. It was just him and his daughter. And his daughter was very anxious for what was happening, but he calmed his daughter down. And he went out and he fought them very valiantly. And his daughter would guide her father. "Father, they're coming from this side. Father, they're coming from this side. Father, they're coming from this side." And Abdullah is saying, "If I had not been blind, you watch what I would have done to you." And finally, these cowards of Ibn Ziyad overtook him. And they brought him in front of Ibn Ziyad. And then Ibn Ziyad said to Abdullah, "Praise to Allah who disgraced you." And then Abdullah, maintaining his strength and composure, said, "O enemy of Allah, how did he disgrace me? Had I been able to see with my eyes, I would have undoubtedly put you to trouble." Then Ibn Ziyad asked him a strange question. He said, "What do you think of Uthman?" And Abdullah said, "What does any of this have to do with Uthman, whether he was good or bad? The issue is with you and your father. You should ask about yourself and your father and about Yazid and his father." This is all Ibn Ziyad needed to hear. They took the man and they murdered him. Inna lillah wa inna alayhi raji'un. Assalamu ala al-Hussein wa ala Ali ibn al-Hussein wa ala awlad al-Hussein wa ala ashab al-Hussein. Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. عباس علم تیرا مختل سے آ رہا ہے، عباس علم تیرا مختل سے آ رہا ہے، شبیر کی کمر کو، شبیر کی کمر کو ہائے جھکا رہا ہے، عباس علم تیرا مختل سے آ رہا ہے، عباس علم تیرا مختل سے آ رہا ہے، یہ علم حسینیت کی پہچان ہے کراتا، یہی یزیدیت کے فرق کو ہے بتاتا، کوئی چومتا ہے آ کر، کوئی چومتا ہے آ کر، کوئی جلا رہا ہے، عباس علم تیرا مختل سے آ رہا ہے، عباس علم تیرا مختل سے آ رہا ہے، مشکل کشا کا بیٹا کرتا ہے یوں فیاضی، کچھ مانگ کر تو دیکھو دیتا ہے میرا غازی، مشکیزہ بازوؤں کے، مشکیزہ بازوؤں کے بدلے بچا رہا ہے، عباس علم تیرا مختل سے آ رہا ہے، عباس علم تیرا مختل سے آ رہا ہے، جیسے علم گرا تھا ویسے گری سکینہ، پانی میں زندگی بھر مانوں گی اب کبھی نہ، اب پانی کا تصور، اب پانی کا تصور مجھ کو رلا رہا ہے، عباس علم تیرا مختل سے آ رہا ہے، عباس علم تیرا مختل سے آ رہا ہے، عباس علم تیرا مختل سے آ رہا ہے، یا حسین، 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 یا حسین،
سادات کربلا، سادات کربلا، چہلم کو کربلا میں جب آئیں وہ بیبیاں،
سادات کربلا، سادات کربلا،
کچھ بیبیاں یہاں ہیں کچھ بیبیاں وہاں، کرتی ہوئی فقا،
کرتی ہوئی فقا،
بکھری ہوئی تھی مقتل سرور میں جا بجا، سادات کربلا، سادات
کربلا،
چہلم کو کربلا میں جب آئیں وہ بیبیاں، سادات کربلا،
سادات کربلا،
ایک بی بی دشت خونی میں جاتی ہے نہر پر، کہتی بچشم تر، کہتی
بچشم در،
عباس دینے آئی ہوں پرسا سکینہ کا، سادات کربلا، سادات کربلا، چہلم کو کربلا میں جب آئی وہ بیبیاں، سادات
کربلا،
سادات
کربلا،
گھٹ گھٹ کے لاڈلی تیری زندہ میں مر گئی، تربت وہیں بنی، تربت
وہیں بنی،
بھیا وہ قید سے ہوئی نہ مر کے بھی جدا، سادات کربلا، سادات کربلا، چہلم کو کربلا میں جب آئیں وہ بیبیاں، سادات کربلا،
سادات کربلا،
اکبر کی قبر پر ہوئی یوں لیلا نوحہ گر، دیکھا نہ سال بھر، دیکھا
نہ سال بھر،
آئی ہوں قید شام سے اب ہو کے مسرحا، سادات کربلا، سادات کربلا، چہلم کو کربلا میں جب آئی وہ بیبیاں، سادات کربلا،
سادات کربلا،
بانو یہ بین کرتی تھی اے میرے بے زباں، ماں ڈھونڈے اب کہاں، ماں ڈھونڈے
اب کہاں،
بتلا دے ہے کہاں میرا اصغر اے کربلا، سادات کربلا، سادات کربلا، چہلم کو کربلا جب آئی وہ بیبیاں، سادات کربلا،
وہ عابد بیمار تھا،
وہ عابد بیمار تھا،
چلنے سے جو لاچار تھا،
چلنے سے جو لاچار تھا،
اور شام کا بازار تھا،
اور شام کا بازار تھا،
اور مصطفیٰ کی بیٹیاں، مولا امام یا حسن یا حسین، مولا امام یا حسن یا حسین، 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 اللہم صل علی محمد۔
السلام عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي هلت بفنائك، عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين، والسلام عليك يا أبا الفضل العباس، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولا يا غريب الغرباء، السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء، السلام عليك يا شمس الشموس أيها المدفون بأرض التوس، السلطان بالحسن علي بن موسى الرضا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولاي يا صاحب العصر والزمان، الأمان الأمان من فتنة الزمان، السلام عليك يا مولاي يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا مولاي يا إمام الإنس والجان،
السلام عليك يا مولاي يا مظهر العدل والإيمان. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وزهورك، وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك، وجعلنا من أعوانك وأنصارك وشيعتك ومعينك في يوم جزاء ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجك.